This is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Rosslager.
Shield wall!
All of my life and all of your lives have come to this point. There is nowhere else to be but here.
No, I always knew I would love these Northmen.
This is Vikcast with Clive Standen and Amy Bailey.
And as the King of Wessex and King of Bretwalda, all of England, I order you to listen to Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
The podcast direct from Valhalla.
Hi everyone, I'm George Blagden and I play Athelstan on Vikings, and you should tune into this incredible podcast, Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
This is Vikcast.
Hello, I am Alyssa Sutherland and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Hi there, this is Kevin Durand. This is Harvard the Wanderer. You're listening to Vikcast. This is a Viking thing.
Hey guys, this is Alexander Ludwig here, and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Hi, I'm Maude Hirst. I play Helga on Vikings, and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing. Come join us. Skull!
Hi everybody, it's Clive and Amy again, and welcome to another episode of Vikcast.
And today you are so lucky because you're going to hear from the Maude Hirst, who plays the iconic Helga in our show, the wild and wonderful, free-spirited, very mysterious and interesting character. And today you're going to hear all about it from the woman herself. Hey, Maude.
Hi. I wish that was my introduction as Maude, the wild and mysterious lady herself.
Well, you know, as
guys.
Good. As I was just doing that, I was thinking she is wild and wonderful, but she is quite a mysterious character because you kind of don't really know what she's going to do next. She's that very free spirit that you can't really predict Helga and what she's thinking, what she's going to do.
Mm-hmm. She was. It was fun. That's why she was so fun to play. Never knew what she was about to do.
Can you talk us through when you first got cast, how it was, how Vikings came into your life and the audition process, and from the moment that you got the audition until you're on set? Because we just been talking to George and Alyssa, and everyone has a completely different story on how they arrived on this crazy show where we're all a bunch of eclectic morons that seem to create this brilliant family.
Yeah, I was traveling around Thailand years and years ago, it feels. And I had a call from my agent saying, there's this character called Helga I want to put you up for. Would you be up for it? And obviously said yes. And then I think you guys had already started filming season 1. So Helga came in like halfway through. So you're already in production. And so Kieran Donnelly, director, and Frank Mazel were in London doing castings. So I went in and there was a beautiful monologue that Helga, I think it was maybe in like the second episode that she was in that she did that I had to do for the audition. And I worked with my acting coach at the time, just had this amazing, I just loved it so much. And she felt like this amazing, crazy hippie lady. And I just spent 2 months being full hippie on the beach in Thailand. And it all just kind of felt like things were rolling. But then it went silent. I did the audition and didn't hear for a week. I mean, always the way, but weeks. And I just like gave up. I was like, well, whatever. It was great. The audition process was lovely. Loved connecting with Frank. And then out of the blue, it like happened really quick. They just suddenly said yes. And it's a couple of weeks. You need to be on a plane and be there. So I was like, oh, okay, wow, life is changing, and just quickly jumped on a plane. I think obviously none of us knew what it was going to kind of turn into and how long it would last. So it all felt kind of a temporary, maybe, and a really, for Helga as well, it was no guarantee that she was going to kind of stay on. It was quite a short-term character at first. And so I kind of went out thinking maybe for season 1 and then done, and then it all went from there.
That's a good moment for me to put the record straight as well, because I forgot about that. And in episode 2, the Rollo takes advantage of Floki's slave girl, and I think when you were cast, a lot of people thought that was Helga, and it wasn't. It was a slave girl. And then when we come back from raiding the West, we get introduced to Floki's woman view.
I remember that. I remember that scene, Clive. That was strange watching it because I feel like Rollo became such a different character after that, but that's got to be hard to do scenes like that.
Oh yeah, it was awful, but it was literally a conversation between Michael and me going, well, I've got 2 brothers and one's a good guy and one's a bad guy. Kind of in terms of the brotherly feud, and you're both of a similar age, you're both kind of leading men, and so what better way to make it clear who you're meant to root for than having one of them rape a slave. And I was like, nice. Okay, I didn't really. So it was a last minute addition, and I remember Johan. They all thought I'd be what I was. I was terrified about doing it. I'd never even done a love scene on screen, let alone do something that was aggressive like that. And I remember Johan sitting me down as well and going, I want it to be gruesome. I don't want it to feel like it's, I just want you to literally just, and I remember Johan being Johan showed me the face he wanted me to have on Rollo's face while he was performing the act. I was like, okay, it's that. And he's literally just he's like, I want this to be a horrible, horrible moment where you don't even want to look at the screen because it's only going to be like 3 seconds. And we've got to portray that, over 3 seconds, and we're going to cut to Floki on the roof, and then we're going to cut there, and you'll be buttoning up your britches, and that's all we need. And then we've set this character up. But yeah, it was a last minute addition to the script, and I'd never met the lady.
Oh God! Did you know much more about your character than Maude? Because if you came in and you thought that she was just this crazy hippie lady, so you didn't have any clue that you're going to have this great love story with Floki, and she was going to become who she was?
No, not at all. I mean, I knew that she was going to be Floki's partner for the time that she was in there, but it was never kind of written long term. I think that kind of rolled as the show rolled on. But no, at first it was just that she was going to kind of come in as this spiritual sidekick to Floki for a time that kind of progressed as we went along.
In season 1, the spirituality of that character kind of culminated in Uppsala. In my opinion, when we all went to Uppsala for the sacrifice, and Athelstan is getting kind of groomed to be Ragnar's sacrifice. But your character was the free spirit, and it was almost like she was in her element. It was like her Burning Man, or I don't want to compare Coachella to Uppsala, but yeah, she was there. It was like her festival of festivals. You remember we filmed that on Halloween? At night time.
How amazing. When you just said that was the best filming experience, wasn't it? It was like we all came together. We were in the middle of this forest with I think there was music playing. It was the most beautiful, like fairy lights all put up in the forest. It was amazing. But yeah, it was for Helga, that was definitely her element. And she kind of, I think, calmed down. She's very relevant in these times with everyone talking about like polyamory and just like not being with one person. She came in much more kind of open and much more kind of, I think, what people are talking about now. There's just complete free spirit that didn't live by the rules of anybody else's game playing. And she was just really came in as this free spirit who I think as kind of their relationship developed, she kind of changed her ways and became much more one eyes on Floki, but she entered much more kind of open to that.
Yeah. We talked to George about his first scene on set was the threesome proposition with Lagertha and Ragnar. And I suppose the first time you really meet Helga, she kind of pops out and she's completely naked. She's like, hello. It's like the same kind of thing. It's like, this is Viking culture. You're in for a ride.
Welcome. Yeah, that was my first scene as well. My first scene filming. I hadn't basically met anybody, and I think the first 2 people I met was Gustav and Bob, and it was literally that day. And on the side of a mountain, they were like, "It's a closed set and action," and I was like, "Okay, here we go."
Oh my God! So you're meeting your cast and crew kind of for the first time. You're on the show and you have no clothes except for, I'm assuming you had a merkin. And if you did,
I didn't even know what a merkin was until that day.
Explain to the audience what a merkin is.
I didn't understand what it was. I remember hearing all the costume and makeup departments and everything talking about a merkin for Maude. And I was like, what's a merkin?
Also, they made my merkin out of one of the other boys' beard wigs. No! Basically, a merkin. Yes, a merkin is a vagina wig. So it's basically to cover your pubic hair. Well, to make it so it's whatever. But yeah, it was a traumatic first day on set, and literally, I mean, Gustav was incredible. But we met. One of the first takes that we did, we were like stood behind a fake door. So there was literally about this much room. We had to be literally on each other, stood like this before we exited the door. And that was our first meeting. Like we're trying to just look up like face to face and be like, "Hi, nice to meet you." And so,
and all you have on is a merkin.
Yeah, I was like, yeah,
that is wild. How do you even prepare for that as a young? Because you were like 23. You're a young actress. You're going on this huge show with lots of people involved and big actors, and you're just, I don't know, how did you even get there? Or are you like Helga and Maude is a bit of a free spirit and able to sort of, look beyond?
I wish I was me now then, because I think I would be much more the free spirit. It was terrifying. And actually, I think I would not want to repeat that. I didn't prepare myself. I didn't really have any idea what I was kind of putting myself in. You just kind of, I think there's one of the things about film sets is that everything, although it's like a slow day, everything happens quite quickly. So it was just kind of, I was in the merkin, I was in a dressing gown, and all of a sudden I was filming, and I didn't really have much time to process it, like really what was happening. But it's not a pleasant experience to go through, to be naked on set. And I don't think, maybe some people can prepare. I wish I had meditation way back then in the day, but I think I just pretended it wasn't really happening and I was just fully clothed. That's what I think how I dealt with it.
I was just thinking about, I remember that no one explained to me how you put all those kind of weird, what do they call them, a cock sock. And no one explains, they just hand it to you and they just kind of like put that, an arm comes through the crack in the door and goes, "You're wearing this today. Tell me when you're ready for set." And then I'm trying to stick it on and there's no instruction book that comes with it. And then you've got, they're ready for you on set. And you're like, "I'm not ready. I can't come out like this." And you do every part of you, the school child or the child wanting his mum to be there just comes out going, "Can someone just do it for me? I have no idea how to do this." I didn't kind of sign up for this when I'm at drama school, but that was what was going through in my head when I'm thinking it must have been similar. Someone just hands you a piece of another man's, fake beard and says, "Stick this on. They'll be ready for you in 5 minutes."
I remember I was in an Uber in LA and the Uber driver recognized me from Vikings. And I guess he was feeling all frisky because he was really excited to talk about all the sex scenes that all of our characters had done. And he really wanted me to talk through like how fun it was to, simulate sex with your friends on set. And I was like, "Dude, you have no idea. It's not sexy. It's not fun. It's really awkward. It's embarrassing." I mean, I think we were all lucky with our cast that we loved each other so much. So, we all got along with the various castmates that we had to climb all over. But yeah, the final product might look kind of fun and sexy, but it's not on the day.
No, definitely not. And you don't train for that. You don't learn that. You never get comfortable with that thing. I don't think I've never heard an actor be like, "I love those scenes. They're great."
What was your first impressions of the castmates that you met? I mean, because it is a very, very male-orientated show, right? I mean, a lot of especially in season one when you're joining, there was only really Catherine Winnick as one of the other Shield maidens or the female characters. So what was it like when you kind of join a show like that, where it is, on paper, is lots of guys have had time to bond and it's all battles and going west and killing monks? And how did that feel? I mean, what were your first impressions of all of us?
First impressions were, I always were told that male actors were quite small, and I arrived, and in all the other shows I'd done, male actors were quite small, and I was like, everyone is about 8'5", and I'm 5'4". Everyone is huge. But like on a friend level and on a kind of personal level, everyone was so friendly. It already felt like everyone had I kind of feel like I was lucky to enter when I did, because everyone had already formed a kind of really friendly bond. It did start feeling already at that time like, a family, and I felt like everyone was it was early days, we were all really excited to be there, everyone wanted to go out for lovely dinners, and it was really friendly. But it is intimidating, I think, to start halfway through something when there is like friendships that have already formed, and you come in and suddenly you're like, wow, I've got to fit into this a particularly male heavy cast at the time. But it was a really loving, welcoming set, I think. Did you both have that?
What do you think, Clive? Well, you were there from day one, weren't you, Clive?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like when we talked to George, it's like the nerves come in as well when you get there. I mean, I had a very particular, because I did all of my auditions to play Ragnar, and then at the very end, I kind of ended up, Rollo was written to be this 50-year-old cousin to Ragnar, and it changed. So I was kind of at the last minute. It was a very long process auditioning, but then I kind of got told I didn't have a role. So I kind of moved on, and at the last minute, I'd be, like a week and a half before filming, they're like, well, they found their Ragnar, and there's a role for you. They're offering you Rollo. So I just arrived. So, literally all of my research had to be done at the last minute as well, because the Rollo didn't really exist as the character it was becoming in the episodes. So I just remember there being a lot of nerves. I remember meeting Travis Fimmel and thinking that all the pictures I'd seen of him online, where he's like this gorgeous Calvin Klein Tarzan kind of model, and I was like, oh, he's going to be a complete kind of like, you know, because I'm worth it kind of. And then you meet this guy, and he's like this feral guy, mate. How you doing? You know, it's like, you know, so. But we just, yeah, we did bond all together, because I think we were lucky as guys is that we did all of those scenes straight off the bat, you know, because we filmed 3 episodes at the same time. Block 1 was all 3 episodes. So we went straight to Linda's farm, and it was all the Viking voyages together. So I think we threw ourselves in that. And, you know, we were all so nervous about working out and everything that, you know, we were all arrived at the gym, and we're all going, and all arrived at the hotel together, and all at the gym. So it was like a baptism of fire, but we all bonded. I always sit there and think about the reason why we bonded so easily. And as I said in the introduction, is that we were just a bunch of eclectic crazies. There wasn't any 2 people that were full of testosterone and competing with each other. Everyone just had their place. And that's like the perfect family or friend group, is that when you don't feel like there's anyone just stepping on your toes or anything like that, we all just, it's like having a bunch of eclectic furniture in a house, and somehow it all just works together. I don't know, it's the best.
Really? There was no around amongst the guys? Like, I mean, it felt beautiful from where I was at, but there was no like behind the scenes with the guys? No.
Not really. There was one guy, didn't really fit in. Now, do you know what? Travis was so good at being an actor that leads by example. So, you know, there were moments I can recall where an actor would come in and they wouldn't pull their feet, and they would be like, you know, they'd be complaining about the lunch menu, something stupid like that, or they wouldn't want to carry some equipment up. But, you know, once you see Ragnar picking up 2 massive camera boxes and climbing up a hill, then you kind of have to fall into line. It makes it almost impossible for anyone to step out of line. You know, he was very good at that, just leading by example. And I think that's, you know, when you do get, I remember there was one of the actors that came in, he was playing quite an influential part in season 1, and he was in the, you know, is this what you guys eat every day? It's lunch. You know, well, my last show was so much better. And it was just complaining about everything. You get put to rights, and you kind of suddenly, you know, when you're suddenly standing, like you said, when you're standing in front of 7 guys that are all 6'3", because this particular guy was a Saxon, you're suddenly like, well, we're all really happy here. We're sorry you feel like that, yeah. And then, yeah, suddenly everything stops, and the next day you meet a different person, suddenly pulling their weight.
Maude, what was you and Gustav had one of the best, I mean, I like the best romances. I think there's not a single fan who wouldn't say that they were rooting for Floki and Helga, because it's such a beautiful, interesting romance. But how do you talk us through how you meet someone as a friend on set, a fellow actor, but then how do you get that kind of chemistry so that when people are watching you, they're totally believing that Floki and Helga are made for each other? And did you guys work through it? Did you do scene prep on your own, or did it just develop through your friendship?
A bit of both. We kind of, at first, it was just developing on screen. And I think the beautiful thing about both of their characters is that they were free-spirited, and it wasn't like a love. The reason I think everyone got behind them is because at first it wasn't like this love story. It was just these 2 free spirits that kind of found each other. So it was almost like it worked that we hadn't done that much work as 2 characters coming together, and it almost like evolved as it kind of naturally progressed on set. And then as we developed our friendship, that was obviously helped in scenes. And then we did a few as things got harder and the storylines grew and there was a lot more emotional stuff that came in. We then did kind of do a bit of scene work together as well. But it was mainly, I think, just our friendship that grew, but also the more you know your character, it kind of, I don't know if you guys felt this as well. It just felt like you grew with your character. It felt so organic on Vikings because it was so long and we filmed for so long. It was almost like, I believe that when I was on set, I was just in that relationship. It felt like we were so tied together. Every scene was together and it felt like we really were there to support each other. So that came across, I think, on screen as well as off screen.
Yeah, I definitely think you and Gustav were seamless. It's like I'd see your actual genuine love and friendship off camera. And then I would see Floki and Helga. And one particular scene, the first one that comes in my head, it was directed by Carrie Skoglund, because I remember I'd finished doing a scene and I just wanted to stick around afterwards. And she had a crane shot above both of you and you were in the grass, the long grass. And it's the scene where you tell him you're having a baby, I think. And I remember just thinking, that's more than Gustav. And I mean that as a compliment in terms of that it was just a natural just chemistry there that I would see, on a day off outside of work as well. You two really did have something that was just electric on camera and off camera. It was really, really, really lovely to watch, that transition.
Thanks. And that was one of my favorite scenes. It was so unexpected, so not in the script. It was like we were all just like wondering how to do that scene. And then suddenly Carrie was like, I've got this idea. We're dropping you guys literally in the middle of this field and we're going to get a crane. And we were like, okay. And then to watch it back was one of the most visually amazing scenes that we did. It was just so simple and just about a moment between them. It's funny with Gustav and I as well. I mean, even I was so much younger then, but even like we've transitioned now, and both of us have kind of gone down a meditation route. It's weird, isn't it, that you sometimes just connect with somebody along the way, and your life paths kind of do that.
Yeah, I think fans often wonder how similar people are to the characters that they play on screen. And do you feel like because you have, I mean, I know you very well, but do you think you became more spiritual because of Helga? Did she spark any of your interest in the spirit world, do you think?
I don't know, but I feel like maybe she did. I mean, I certainly feel that she knew more than I did about that world. I never thought it until people have asked me about it, but it must, I mean, I think my research into kind of spirituality because of Helga must have started planting some seeds there that allowed me to get more and more curious. And I certainly feel more Helga now than I did when I was filming and when I was there. I've definitely become the wild hippie woman in recent years.
That's so good.
Did you have a favorite director when you were filming? Is a favorite episode or a favorite scene or a favorite director that you worked with that kind of really stands out?
I loved working with Carrie on those few scenes, but I think Ken Girotti for me was my favorite director to work with and my favorite human to work with as well. And I think he became part of the family because he was around so often as well. So I really, I loved working with him, and I loved creating just moments there was a lot of moments with Ken where magic would happen that like it felt like such a collaborative experience where he would have an idea but also give you freedom. And then at the end of a scene, it'd be like, wow, we're all like, that was a moment of magic. Who did you guys love working with?
Well, I loved Ken just because he made everything on set feel fun. And he also made you as an actor, which I hate to say this because it kind of feeds into that fragile ego thing, but he made you feel like you were brilliant. He kind of made you feel like you were doing just a really unexpectedly brilliant job. So Ken, if you're listening, whether or not that was true, thank you for that. I do remember my very first scene that I ever did on Vikings was a banquet scene with Linus and Mo and Athelstan, the lovely George, who I had to climb on top of and seduce. Poor guy, we didn't know each other, and it was Carrie Skoglund. She let us play the whole scene long form as if we were on stage in a play. And that was delightful because I had come from theater. So it felt so indulgent because I don't know if listeners know, but quite often when we do a scene, we stop and we start again and we stop. And sometimes we do it out of order, and it can be very disconcerting to try to get the flow of a scene, and the cameras have to turn around and it can feel like a big mess. So she let us play the whole scene out. And I was just, that was wonderful. And of course, Helen Shaver was awesome as well. Those three stick out to me. What about you, Clive?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Carrie Skoglund, but I mean, I can't say that she was one of my favorites in the show because unfortunately, every time she directs an episode, Rollo wasn't in it very much. So I got to admire her as a director. And that's why, like I said, I was there behind the camera watching your scene, Maude, you and Gustav, because I was just wanted to see what she was doing because I could see this incredible director at work. But for me, it has to be Johan Renck at the beginning because he set my character on a completely different path than I could ever imagine. Yeah, and he was ruthless with me. He would sometimes come up to me and he'd be like, I'd do a scene. I remember doing a scene with Travis and Lagertha, one of my first days on set, and it's when Rollo kind of when Ragnar goes out for a piss outside and Rollo is left with Lagertha and he comes and starts to seduce her and she goes, "You were a great warrior, not so much a great man." I would do that scene and he would go, and what I loved about him is he would do it in private. He'd never send you up in front of everybody, but he would go and he'd take me to one side and he'd go, "Why the fuck are you doing this, man? You're so much fucking better than this. You don't love those kids. You hate those kids. They're fucking everything that symbolizes everything you haven't got. And I'm like, so I was delivering these lines. He was like, come on, go some fucking balls. Go back in there and do it again. Yeah. And I do it again. And he'd go, you're still fucking doing it. You're still acting too much. You're still doing, you try to control. And he would just, but then what he was doing is he was like, it was like working with Ingmar Bergman. It was like, he would be like, do the opposite, do this, don't do that. And by the end of this scene, he pulled and twisted me to and fro to where I actually, everything I thought about the scene, I didn't understand at all. And everything I was doing, I was suddenly going in the moment. Yeah, wow, great. Yeah. And what he's so good at is when you do it, he doesn't say, well done, look at you and boost it, because no actor needs their ego boosting like that. He would just go, moving on. You know, give you a thumbs up, or he would just let you know you finally did what he wanted to do. And but what I loved about it is that he never gave up. Because obviously, if a director doesn't think you have it in you, then they will just go, okay, moving on. Yeah, like I gave him 3 tries, he didn't get it. He wouldn't. He'd go, it's in you. You just got to get it. And he sent Rollo on a different course, really, because I think what I realized working with those 3 episodes is that I was competing with Ragnar, and Ragnar was competing with me. What Travis was doing is Travis was creating a hero type character who was wanting to be unlikable. His story arc is this guy that gets obsessed with his narcissism and his fame, and Rollo is a guy who just wants to be loved, but he's just does it all the wrong way. So rather than playing this archetypal, I'm a Viking, which I probably would have ended up doing if it wasn't for, and he's like, he made me see all these flaws, all these things that were just eating away at him and making him the man that he was. So I owe a lot to Johan, and Ken was so much fun, but Helen Shaver was the other person down the line when I started getting to season 3 and Siggy's dying and, a fight with Björn and, and Rollo's off the rails. I think I owe that to her, like shaping that part of the character. I'd like to take all the credit for myself, but it's not. It's these incredible directors that come in and they have their insight and they twist and they send you, they're the first audience member, I suppose, aren't they? So they take what you've done and they hopefully raise your performance and make it better.
Maude, you mentioned Jesselyn, who played Siggy, and what was it like to, because you, so Jesselyn and you and Alyssa, you had such a lovely chemistry offset. You were all besties, but then on set as well, you as women and characters, you really bonded and you held a sort of creche with all the children. And what was it like to have that relationship? But also, what was it like to have to take care of all those kids on set?
Terrifying. I was like 24 years old and like, here's 5 kids, then action. It became not about acting for a long time. It became about saying your lines and protecting kids from fires, which I realized very quickly. It was like, this is dangerous, this is terrifying, and there's kids that could just run at any point into a fire. So it was very much about safeguarding children on a terrifying set. But other than that, it was amazing. It was such a lovely, because the show had and is so much about the men and their storylines. Even when we were in partnerships, it was very much about our husbands and their, and their storylines. And we were, how can we support you? Particularly with Helga, it was like, anything you do, Floki, I'll be there. And it was a moment where it was about these 3 women and that, we were kind of holding court and had a moment where it was about kind of connecting, I guess now like a spiritual service, like women's circles, and how we could like help each other raise kids and be in a position like that, which it was lovely. And as you said, kind of on and off screen, we were friends. So it was such a lovely experience to be able to work further with those 2. But working with children is an interesting one. And it's amazing when I spent a lot of time with the girl that ended up playing my daughter offset, just so that she was kind of comfortable on set, but say action and there's just all hell breaks loose, because you can't tell a kid to sit somewhere and look somewhere and be somewhere and hit their mark when they're hot and hungry and angry, just and
scared happen. Sometimes they're scared. I had to work with 3-year-old twins and they were terrified, and their mom had to stay in eye line the whole time. And it was like, man, it was a juggle. And now I have, of course, little ones myself, and I just like it's really hard. Your brain is split in 100 different places when you're trying to act with kids.
And it must be terrifying, right? Some of those like great hall scenes, you've got these tiny little kids and they're, everything's lit with candles. So there's all this black sooty smoke everywhere and it's all slightly hazy. And then there's all these guys with massive ginger beards and crazy leathers. And it's like being like where the wild things are or something. So it must be terrifying. So my mum was just in the car. I was in the car seat and then I kind of went up and there was all these friendly people people in the makeup room and there were all those bright lights. And then suddenly I was put in this dark cave with these horrible men with greasy beards. And I don't know where my mum and dad are.
Yeah. Do you remember at the end of set after a day's filming and you'd blow your nose and it was just like black soot?
Yeah. It's hard too when you're acting with kids and you have to do a scene where you are scary. I remember I had to do with these 3-year-olds. First of all, I was heavily pregnant myself at the time, but I had to do this scene where I was angry at King Egbert and I had to scream at him. It was a screaming monologue, and I had to scream at him and rush forward and slam into his not desk. King doesn't have a desk. What does he have? A big table. And I had to like wipe maps off the thing. And it was just this, and I was screaming at the top of the legs, like, how dare you? And all this, and this 3-year-old and his brother, they couldn't do it. We had to cut him from the scene because I think he was just like, I'm not, this woman's crazy and she's pregnant, I guess. I don't know. I'm not doing it. So he got cut.
We also have to explain to them what's happening because a lot of these kids, they don't read the previous scripts. So they get told that, you're playing so-and-so, you're playing Rollo's son in this scene. And he's like 6 years old or something. And I found myself sometimes turning around going, well, the reason why she punches me in the face is because I went on an adventure on my boat and, I kind of stayed away a little bit too long and she thought I was going to be back on Wednesday and I kind of came back on Sunday, and you're trying to like tell them in this kind of kid, and that's why she punches me, but it's not real. And you're trying to make them just understand why everyone's suddenly screaming and shouting and there's fake blood everywhere.
Yeah. Maude, you talked about the little girl that you had to bond with. Tell us about the scene where you had to, where your daughter dies and you're out in the snow and you're crying and you're digging her grave. What was that like to do? Especially, I think, after you had bonded with the little one that played your daughter.
Yeah, it's so tough, not only as the actor doing it, but also I always feel that the gravitas of portraying literally everyone's worst nightmare, and anybody that's experienced that, and you feel like, you want to portray something that obviously I hadn't gone through, and touch wood, I don't, but portraying something that is so big and emotional. It was really, I spent a lot of time working on that scene and trying to get into the headspace of where you would go. It helped on the day that it was just this like hailstorm. It was almost like the weather just knew what was happening. And Travis and I were just outside and like shivering, freezing. It was really, really, really hard and very, very emotional. But like everything in Vikings, the weather and just the harshness of being out in nature kind of helped, I think, in that place. But it was, it was really not a fun scene to portray. But I think, I think we got there, and Travis is amazing. We'd actually worked together on that scene beforehand as well. It was it wasn't fun to film, but actually a moving experience.
It was beautiful. It was heartbreaking, completely heartbreaking.
And on a juxtaposition to that, one of the most beautiful scenes that I can remember in Vikings was your wedding with Floki. I mean, on the barge and the flowers and the costumes and things. I mean, talk us through that day. That was such a beautiful day on set.
That was amazing. And we had no idea they didn't show us or talk about like how they were going to design it. And they'd obviously spent so much time working on that boat with all like the flowers. It was incredible. It felt magical. It felt like I'd literally like lived through an actual wedding, and the excitement of just getting down there and seeing it all. And also like surrounded by the cast and everybody. It was just such a beautiful, magical moment. And their love story at that point was just such a beautiful unraveling of them, I guess, these two free spirits that had come together. And the scene was just so beautiful. And it, again, the weather, and they always like use smoke machines, but it was also kind of like a misty day down on the what was it called, that place?
In Lugalo.
Where we filmed. In Lugalo. Yeah. And it was just an epic scene to film. And they loved that we kind of really played around with what they would like, how they would have done the weddings, and how kind of physical it was, and how different it is to kind of today, which is so separate and everything's just very static, and how it was all about like touching and connection and spirituality.
Yeah.
That's my favorite picture of Helga and Floki, is where he's holding you. You have flowers all in your hair, and he's cradling you, and you just both look absolutely radiant. I love that picture. Is that it?
God.
Oh, there it is.
Be on the thing. I was looking through this little Viking book, which I think you can still get in the shops. And I was looking through that, and that's what I saw. I saw the pictures of the wedding, and I was just like, oh, it's got to talk about that.
I love
Beautiful.
it.
Because there was a lot of factual Vikings. The Vikings invented the word honeymoon. It was honeymoon comes from the Vikings. Yeah, it comes from the whole cycle of the moon. A man was encouraged to take his woman that he was betrothed to be married to and take her away, almost kidnap her for the whole of the moon cycle, and they would drink honey mead for the whole of the cycle because they believed that it would increase the fertility chances, which obviously now we know does the complete opposite, but they would be drinking honey mead. So it was the moon cycle and the honey mead, hence the name. The honeymoon is where it came from. And then the bit that you see Floki as well, when you were meant to find a sword from your family. And if you didn't have a sword, you had to find one from your ancestors. So it was the only time in Viking culture where you'd be able to dig up a burial mound and find one of your ancestors' swords as a to offer to the family and to show that you're a worthy warrior and you had some lineage. And when you see Floki kind of do that when he digs up the sword and everything. I just think it's great that you actually in this show we were able to not reinvent it, but because this society had almost been forgotten for so many hundreds of years, to actually be almost be the first show to actually dramatize some of these elements, and people are like, oh, that's original, and you're like, but that's where it comes from. With anything, not just with weddings, with with a lot of the different rituals in it, and even sacrificing everything up to the blood eagle. You never really seen it on screen before, and I don't think we'd ever seen a wedding quite like your wedding on screen.
Yeah, it was magical. That's so interesting about the honeymoon story. I didn't know. They were so, it's kind of, people are realizing this again, like not the power of the moon, or maybe it's just the world I'm in right now, which is talking about like moon cycles, but also just like how amazingly in tune they were with nature and with the moon, and how we kind of have lost our way a little bit like that, and realizing that actually, so much changes around the cycle of the moon. The Vikings had it sorted.
Take us, that's a really good segue. Take us into your world right now with Energy Rise. This has been, I know you as my nickname for Maude, anyone who's listening, is Angel, because she is an angel on earth. And talk to us about how you got into energy meditation work and what that's going, and then tell us about Energy Rise.
Wow, what a transition. So the last 3 years, I think it's been now, has just been a completely kind of a shift in a new direction, a beautiful unraveling. Whether Helga planted the seed, I don't know. But I went just through a lot of life shifts coming out of Vikings, coming out of a long-term relationship, and really questioning like who I was kind of entering into my 30s, and just thinking like, who am I? What makes me happy? I'd been acting and auditioning since I was 10 years old. It had been like my whole entire life. And I kind of was in a position where I could redefine myself and rediscover like who I wanted to be at this point. Did a very cliche yoga retreat, break up. And on the yoga retreat, just had a lot of like epiphanies about what made me truly happy, what made me feel more myself. I think with many of us in acting, we go in for all different reasons into the acting world. But I realized part of my journey into acting was hiding behind scripts and characters a lot, and not really ever wanting to be me. I come from a hugely academic family, raised by my mum, my brother and sister, hugely academic, both one a lecturer at university, the other one a journalist. And I felt like the black sheep of the family that would never felt that confident in myself. And so this whole like new moving into yoga, and then now heavily into meditation, allowed me to kind of stop hiding and stop using characters to feel confident, stop using acting to feel confident, and just be like, this is Maude and this is who I am. I'm a person that does lots of things. I still love acting, love collaborating. All the things that we talk about and the moments we all remember were those magical moments where we all really connected, and like when magic happened and we collaborated with the director or the other actors. And so I've always been like, that's what excites me, collaboration and deep connections with people. And I've kind of experienced this like kind of new transition into meditation, to guiding, to holding spaces for other people to discover meditation and mindfulness. So I then started my business, Energy Rise, which is basically trying to make mindfulness accessible to everybody at a time where there's more anxiety and stress, and the world is upside down right now, and it feels just like a good time to allow people to find that kind of inner confidence and yeah, it's just become my new passion. I kind of didn't realize I was ever going to find something that I loved as much as acting. And this has become equally as important in my life. And this amazing ability to help people shift through really tough times. And and also meditation is just the most incredibly profound, beautiful, peaceful experience to go to. So yeah, I'm excited about my next chapter.
I feel like it sometimes can feel like it's too much to, when I see the meditation and the yoga and people in mindfulness, and when it's working for them, I'm really like, oh, I want that for myself. I want that. But it feels like such a big transition to change your habits and life. So what I'm trying to ask is it baby steps? Is it just important to just start with 10 minutes a day, or do you really need to change your whole outlook on life to kind of really, stick to it?
No, you definitely don't need to change anything about your life to meditate. There was so many people on Vikings that would come in and out that were heavily meditating at the time as well. Like people, you can fit it into any lifestyle. Literally start with baby steps, doing 10 minutes in the morning, that science is now proving. And this isn't about like spiritual awareness. It's just about letting your mind rest and connecting to your breath and doing the stuff that allows your body to heal. Science is proving it now as well. It's so important for all of us to have a moment where we reconnect to breath. Breath work is becoming this new like boom word. If you can literally change your breath and calm your body, 10 minutes is all it takes to have quite a profound change for the rest of your day. So you don't have to change anything about your lifestyle. I just have, because I got so excited when I found this thing, but for most people, 10, 15 minutes can make a huge, huge difference. Come on, Clive. Come to a meditation.
I do need to. I know. I do. This has been a tough year for me. I've had a really, really tough year. I think we all have. And I've never been anxious in my life. And it pops into you, and you have to just keep pushing it down. But maybe it's something I should explore now. Heading forward.
I mean,
soon.
Come on. If you can be taught meditation by Helga, surely there is no other person on earth to teach you meditation.
You just said some of the Vikings. I do actually. I've just suddenly popped into my memory. I remember coming across Kevin Durant, literally in the lotus position, and he's huge, right? He's this humongous man. I remember just seeing him, and he was so at peace, just meditating. He was just in his own world, and I think I maybe need a little bit of that in my life right now.
Yeah, maybe I'll do a Viking meditation. Get us all together. Do a live stream Viking meditation.
Yeah.
Where you are right now, imagine yourself in 20 or so years. Where do you really find yourself if you are to kind of be akin with a Viking? Would you see yourself as more of a farmer, a king, or a warrior? When it's all said and done, where would you like to, where does your spirit really lie?
I'd be a farmer, connecting with the earth and living a peaceful existence. That would definitely be my way forward in 20 years. A bit of a warrior, but a different kind of warrior. I don't want to fight. I guess like Helga probably would have been.
All right, Farmer Maude. Because Maude would definitely get into Helga would definitely get into Valhalla without a question. But
she wouldn't even have to try. No, but Maude wouldn't have to try.
Farmer Maude, if you're at the gates of Valhalla and Odin is looking back at you and he's like, These halls are getting quite full. Ragnarok is just around the corner. We've got all the warriors we need, Maude, but we can probably let in a couple more. Tell me the most Viking thing you've ever done in your life that will make me open these gates to the halls of Valhalla for you. What is the most Viking thing you've ever done in your life?
Oh, geez. The most Viking, I mean, have I done any Viking? I guess me now, meditating, being like Helga, literally in humanity, bringing everyone together to meditate. I mean, Helga was basically in Valhalla already. She's living between two different worlds. And I think I'm getting close to that myself. Half on this planet, half somewhere else most of the time in meditation.
I think you are, hence angel. You are an angel on earth. We ask that to all the cast members, what are all the interviews, what's the most Viking thing they've ever done. But I think you might be the one that you wouldn't have to prove anything. You're just sort of there. I think she's on the other side opening the door. Don't you think?
That answer is just so, because everyone always falls for what's the most Viking thing you've done in your life? And everyone thinks war and rage and fighting. And it's not, because the Vikings weren't. They were traders. They were farmers, and they were so in touch. The pagan lifestyle was so in touch with nature. They believed that when they saw the mist on the that they saw the dew on the grass in the morning. The gods had been fighting things, but it was so every day. Nature and the earth and spirituality was so important to them. So Maude's answer is actually totally Viking.
Do I get in? Did I win?
Yeah, I think so. I think Odin would be like, "That's the answer I've been waiting for all this time." Go and sup with the gods.
And I would I just have to give an extra
Thor needs
shout
a bit
out.
of yoga.
Yeah. And you guys, honestly, listeners, you've got to go check out Energy Rise because Maude's amazing and she's one of the kindest people I know. And she's also very open-hearted. And so meditation isn't an easy thing to get into sometimes. And she understands, and she's definitely helped me as a friend as well, figure out my own meditation path. So this is really exciting.
Yay. Thank you, guys. It's so nice to connect again.
Yeah.
You guys are fantastic.
Love you, Maude.
All right, guys. Love you guys.
Talk to you soon. Bye, sweetie.
This is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing. With Clive Standen and Amy Bailey. Follow the Vikings on Vikcast Official.